to Tim Potter about that federal Tiger grant coming up again in April, and were we going to be on that list? And I've talked to Tim Potter, and what they finally said is that it is not going to be. I think they've decided that it's been enough opportunities and efforts to do that. It hasn't made it. They don't see anything that's going to change that. The probability, and so they will have, and ODOT has the opportunity to move 3 different projects forward for Tiger grant application, and they're going to do that. The fish hook will not be a part of that, but as the director said, there is always the potential that if we wanted, you can have a city or the county make the application and ask ODOT to partner in that effort. But that's clearly not the same as getting the stamp of approval of being one of those 3 projects. It's a lot of work, and so I think we should have a conversation because we're all continue to be concerned about that. But at some point, how far do you go? Mike, you've been right in the middle of all those grant applications.
Mr. Chairman, I have kind of a mixed feeling about it. One is I don't think you're going to be successful in getting a Tiger grant for a project that's come close but hasn't been successful when your state agency has dropped off. I think that's real problematic. On the other side, I really feel like we've made so much progress and we've gotten so much good feedback from staff after we failed about how we could improve the project and what the judges and reviewers thought were weaknesses in it, that we made it stronger each time. And on that side, I think we can put together, without a lot of work and just really fine-tuning the existing application, a pretty decent application. It would cost money. And so I approach this with kind of a mixed view. One is that if we go ahead, we're not going to get it. Why should we invest in it? And the other is, if we go ahead, maybe we could get it with local sponsorship, and we should invest in it. So how's that for a non-answer?
Well, yes, I guess not. Let's just open it up for a conversation, but I know that many of you have been involved as we've had that discussion, and as an overlay to that, it would take some considerable amount of time by our lobbying staff, and I think the committee ought to know that I haven't seen the expenditures for February, but there was a lot of time in Salem, and now we've got a lot of time going forward on some other issues. I am anxiously looking to see what the end of February statement shows, because recall we have a budget. Well, we have allocated funds that go through the county of slightly over $70,000 for lobbying, and I am thoughtful that we may be approaching that, particularly by now, and we still have some months to go. And so, do we start out and expend a number of additional hours by them that may be beyond what we even have the money to do? The Tiger grant application is due latter part of April, and so I think there's 2 questions. For example, would the county or Dundee be willing to take on the applicant status, and if so, and then the resources and funding to put that together. So I think that's a question, because clearly the committee as such doesn't have any money other than the money that we've raised for Michelle Giguere.
Right, and I don't have the latest invoice either, but just through December, our total contract was $69,400. And we had expended $32,57.97 of that. So, and
I don't know, baby, how much is left then after what date?
Well, I haven't got like you said, we haven't got the latest bill. So it's
But that's as of what date?
This was their December invoice.
December.
You don't have January or February.
So I don't have the last. Well, they billed 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Is that for 1 month?
No, this is to October, November.
But that would be year to date. Year to December 31st.
And, this is the invoice we paid. But as far as the county taking that on, I certainly can't, as an individual, commit those funds. But it's I'm certainly open to having the discussion with my fellow commissioners to see if they'd be willing to do that. As you indicated, it is time consuming and it is expensive, and I would have to get some numbers before I would take that before them to see if that's something they want to do. It is something that has to be done as far as rectifying what's going to turn into a major headache. Ted Crawford and I have had many conversations concerning that particular issue. I don't have a silver bullet. I know that the bypass calls for another tearing that down and bringing another off ramp to the north end of Dundee. As in the final phase, the connector to the bypass would be this far end of Dundee. Why they would want to do that when they've already got one here that they could make this the off ramp and just not tear that down. So, I mean, there's a number of things that have to happen as we move forward with the bypass. But the fish hook to me is, I think we're destined failure of the bypass almost from the beginning because of that. And I don't know why ODOT has not pushed harder on that. They've got to recognize the absurdity of what they've done here. And as I understood it, those first three applications were highly listed on ODOT's list. That in reviewing, if I was not misunderstanding, Dave, that it was one of the top three projects on their list.
There's ODOT listed as those grant applications as their three top, one of the three, they get three top projects. And they put a lot of resources along with this committee into pushing that on the federal level.
KC made the final decision on.
Who did?
Who made the final decision on?
This year?
Those not going.
That would, well, ultimately the Transportation Commission would make that decision,
Right.
But the staff, clear to the highest level, including the director, have said this is not one of the three that they want to push forward this year.
So Matt Garrett made the decision that this was not.
Well, he ultimately would have made that, but it would have been as a result of conversations with his staff and federal
And after
people.
3 years of that being a top priority, didn't make his cut. Is that?
I think that says it. I think he said, how many more times do you not get a grant when we've got other projects that are important that give them a shot? And I think then the question for the county would be, if you wanted to be the lead agency, is what is the chance of getting this one to be successful when you move down the list on ODOT's priority when they've got a number of others, three, that even, that's not helpful.
No, and if that's what it comes down to, then, I mean, it's pretty much what Matt wants, Matt gets. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think it's ultimately up to the Transportation Commission, but it would take a major effort to convince the commission after this many efforts to reverse the director on that and to move that piece forward. Could it be done? Maybe, but if it were the first time, a higher probability, what conversation do you have with the Transportation Commission that, well, give us a fourth shot because we failed 3 times shouldn't hold us back?
What kind of dollars do you think you're talking about on trying to push that forward?
Well, I had that conversation with Michelle Jaguarin to the extent of it wouldn't necessarily be a huge job to do the application because most of the context of that application, the text part is done. You kind of may have to tweak it a bit from the prior year, but there's all of the forms that go with it in the application. So she didn't give me a number, but it would require some considerable effort. So I don't know if it's in the order of $5,000 to $10,000 probably. I think that's just a wag, but it wouldn't be inexpensive.
So who would do the application?
Well, right now, if there was an application, it'd have to be either by one of the local entities. It could be the city of Dundee, probably right in the middle of it. probably more effective if it were Yamhill County.
Or a co-application. Or a co-application.
Or it could be.
Do you think that the possibility of it being successful in the future is dependent upon keeping this on the table, not to drop an application at this point? Believing that it's not going to be accepted or move forward, but still, is it damaging to just take it off the table and not continue? Thanks.
Well, let me just, I want to ask Mike, because he's got a lot more experience on that federal kinds of things, but ODOT's position to some extent has been in answer to the question about fishhook failing. Their consultants tell them that it won't fail for about 10 years. Now, you can believe it or not believe that analysis, but ultimately, that's where ODOT is. That's what their consultants are telling them. They're highly qualified traffic engineers. If it's shown not to work and it's failed, Mike, you've had a number of conversations in the committee and others. Sometimes it just doesn't get done until it fails. You know.
Yeah, the truism of transportation funding is that most things don't get funded until they're broke. And that, I think that's going to apply to fishhook. When the fishhook breaks, they'll have to fix it. There'll be no question about that. The prudent thing is to fix it in advance, and the prudent thing to fix it is to do the way that's the configuration of the continuation of the bypass. Dave, even more so than the alternative fix that Tim Potter is offering. Having said all that, there's the political question about what happens if you drop it out of the Tiger Grant process. Dave, I'm not up to speed well enough on the FAST Act, the new federal transportation funding process, but there's new and different money that's available to communities than before. So maybe that's a factoid. Just having said that, I think that my personal feeling is it would cost more than you're talking about. I think your 5 to 10 is a little low. I think it probably would be more like 10 to 15, might even be somewhere between 15 and 20 to get it really polished up and submitted. And then you'd have to have a funded effort to lobby it. That's probably in the range of an additional $25,000 to $30,000 on top of what we're doing for lobbying for the bypass already.
For which I think we already know we don't have the money.
Right, so it'd have to be new funds, and probably in the range of $50,000 to really move a Tiger Grant forward professionally. And I might be high, I'd rather be high than low. I remember the history well enough to know that we had been successful at the federal level with ODOT's opposition. So if we submit the Tiger Grant and we can get MWAC support, I believe that we have a chance of getting a successful Tiger Grant, even if ODOT doesn't submit us. But it would require a significant effort, like it required us, Dave, when we were getting the $20 million in different pieces from the delegation back in the days of earmark. This is the closest thing we're going to get to an earmark is the Tiger Grant process. So having babbled on about that, I think if there can be new money raised for this effort, with the understanding there might be as high as $50,000, I think we ought to really polish it up, make it look really good, and go for it again. If the money's not practical, then we stand down very quietly on the federal front and very vociferously on the ODOT front, saying, you guys are sticking your head in the sand, this thing's going to break, let's start figuring out how we're going to get it fixed. Before 10 years, let's not let it break, let's get the fix in the intervening period of time and keep working on it.
So this is a key thing. You think it would cost like $50,000? You guys know more about
I
this.
think it would cost about $50,000 to professionally move an application forward, not look like we're just throwing up to see if we'll stick to the wall.
Okay, and then one of the municipalities here would take the lead on putting that together. Is that right?
Yeah, the Parkway Committee could collaborate. It's take the lead in the applicant, being the applicants and the funding.
All right. And how much money do we have for that right now?
I would guess that the Parkway Committee's budget is probably, given what we've been doing, is probably just about depleted. And I've been trying to think of how do I find the money to continue the lobbying effort on the efforts and the things we're now doing through June 30th. And then one more part to this equation, that if we wanted to make any kind of an application for funding under the FAST Act, under the Fast Lane types of funds that may be available.
Surface transportation. Fix America's surface transportation.
Yeah.
That's the definition.
So that's due sometime in April, and that's a whole nother application. So to put that in perspective, there'd been a question of, since this project is neither opened nor has a designation of a highway number, or is it, does it qualify for Fast Act funds at all? So Michelle Jaguar has spent some time on the federal level, asking that question. And as of yesterday or the day before yesterday, she received word from, number one, ODOT says that it's probably going to be the designation is going to be a Highway 18 designation. It'll be on the National Highway System. And so at the federal level, Michelle was advised that the project will qualify for Fast Act funding now going forward. And that came not from Federal Highway, but from the Department of Transportation way up the line, and she got confirmation in writing. So that is a very important step in moving it forward. The next question is trying to put together a professional application for anything in a few weeks under a brand new program would be Herculean. I think what ODOT is saying, they just don't think that's possible in order to really make that happen. We could have a conversation with ODOT about making that one happen. But there again, that takes a lot of resources and funding also, or just to keep that issue alive at Federal Highway. I think in talking to Michelle and in everything I'm hearing, that's probably, that one might be more successful maybe, but it would be very tough to put a good proposal together. And do you want to put one together that's kind of a halfway proposal, or do you do it, there'll be lots more of those, and do you wait and do a really first-class job on that one? But that's to update everybody.
So Dave, what happens if we took the fish up, which we can polish up in that time frame, and submit it as a Fast Act application instead of a Tiger Grant application?
I think you could. I think the question
We wouldn't have competition from other Oregon projects.
The issue there would really be how much change would you have to do to make it fit the FAST Act? I don't know the answer to that, Mike, but I think Michelle was looking at any possibilities for that.
We would have a probability of being able to do that. We would have no chance at all of being able to do something new. But
Correct.
Probably we could polish the fish hook material we have to get it as Fast Act. And
I think that's
it seems to me like if we're gonna spend some money and go for something, we might be smarter to go for that.
Can I make a comment, Dave?
Absolutely.
On today's OTC docket, there is an item that talks about some STIP projects using Fast Act money. So it's starting to filter through, at least to the OTC. And I think ODOT may have put those forward. We'll learn more about it later this morning and this afternoon. The second thing is that, the good news is that in the FAST Act, there's a list of about 90 priorities across the whole country. The bypass is like number 88. There's no priority, whatever. Bad news of that is a political list. It is not a funded list, and it doesn't give any additional priority within the appropriations process, et cetera, et cetera. So you still have to fight the battle.
Mayor?
Well, so we talked about a couple things and possibly involvement in the, I believe we would be willing to, put names to the application. I can't say the city has any money to add additional funds to the various things we've got going on. But, having sat in on a conference call that was a review from USDOT of our previous Tiger Grant application, the statement was, the more you apply, the more likely you are to get it. And so here we are, we've run almost to the finish line, we're going to drop dead right before it. This is, know, I can't believe ODOT is dropping it at that point, and then we're considering following suit with it, it's even worse. Because, you know, here we are, we put all this time and money and effort in, and it seems like we're just gonna throw it away, as well as ODOT throwing away everything that they do. But we all know that that failure is imminent on the fish hook, and I have people telling me every day that ODOT knows it, they're just not admitting it publicly. But that's another thing, you know, says, somebody just the other day say, you know, remind ODOT of what they did down in Corvallis, and they'll have another failed highway laying around. And, you know, can they deal with that politically? So I really like to see us move forward with this, because it is something we've already put all this effort and all this money toward, and it feels like that if we give up on Tiger Grant now, that we're throwing away everything we've done previously, which is a huge amount of money, probably a couple $100,000 before what you're saying to get these things out. So it just doesn't make a lot of sense to do that. I do understand on the other side of it that, like Mike said, that they fix things when they're broken. And if it's really where ODOT wants to go with it, then maybe we focus on moving forward with the whole project and let them sit on their failed fish hook and take the flak for it and fix it in the time that it gets fixed, which may be a lot sooner than what we think. You know, talking about exits for the bypass, this is my first statement of this publicly, but I would really rather see them put in just a couple real smooth graded off ramps back here where we're putting in our commercial area, rather than creating a whole new thing at Fox Farm, or even continuing to use the fish hook coming into our Riverside district over here, which would be very simple, smooth, cheap installations. And, you know, that could knock millions and millions off of trying to put something in Fox Farm. So, but again, saying that really like to support the Tiger Grant thing. I realize it may be impossible to push ODOT or OTC to change up their step at this point to do what really appears to be right, but that's where we stand.
So, I don't know a whole lot about this, but I have a general sense of kind of where we are as it relates to the goal line and so forth. And, you know, Austin Industries would be willing to help fund some of this stuff. I want to get a better sense about the cost and, you know, the likelihood and so forth. And I know there are no assurances on any of this, and that's probably an offline conversation maybe, but, so, we'd be willing to do something.
Well, and we can certainly have that conversation. One of the things that Michelle and I talked about is sitting down in the next few days with the upper level at ODOT and talking about both of these and what's the right strategy in terms of going forward. And we could think about filing the fish hook as a FAST Act application, but I think we also have to think about, do we really want to focus our funding on the FAST Act on 219 to Rex Hill and make that the priority, because we know there's a lot of things that need to happen in terms of right-of-way and preliminary additional design work. And this committee passed a resolution saying that right-of-way to ODOT, that right-of-way was a critical factor. So there's something about consistency in there. And
Dave, let me check.
jump in.
Let me check something with you. I think I've heard that we're not going to be able to apply for the FAST Act for anything on phase 2. We just don't have time to put it together.
It's about time.
And that it's more feasible to think about whatever we really want the FAST Act to be in a big play is 2017, April of 2017. Do I have that fact right?
Well, I mean, that certainly is the probably the more practical way to think in terms of how to apply in the FAST Act and be effective.
So I don't think if we, and I read it, I think we ought to do something about the fish hook. Just not let it drop altogether. Sounds like we've tossed it in the towel.
Yep.
But I'm not sure which one I think is best, whether we go after a Tiger Grant even though we don't have ODOT, or whether we go after FAST Act.
Is it inappropriate to do both?
Well, I don't know. That's a political question. It's not a pragmatic question. I mean, it's not a technical question, it's a political question. I don't know if it helps you or hurts you.
The FAST Act application would take a lot more effort by ODOT to make that happen, and they're telling us they just don't think that's realistic. So if you put that in the equation, if anything goes forward, it's more likely you'd take the Tiger grant application and reapply under Tiger funding if we want to do something and be practical about what's possible. I think the fair question is for Michelle about what does she think that would cost dollar-wise to put that together, and what would it take on a lobbying effort? I mean, you could just file it and see what happens, but that's not practical and realistic. She's going to need to expend some resources in D.C. Mr. Mayor?
You made the comment that on ODOT and in the FAST Act, is that resistance, do you perceive that resistance as being in total or just initially?
Well, I don't think it's in total. I just think initially what I'm being told.
Okay. You think it's
they just think they don't think they can make a good application in the amount
today.
of time they have today.
Today, all right, thank
Even with
you.
the fish hook or most?
Or no, just I'm talking.
The FAST
Well,
Act.
I don't know that there was a conversation about the fish hook moving to the FAST Act, but then you just have to totally figure out, does it even fit the requirements? And maybe, who knows, if you might have to just totally rebuild the application under a different program. Probably a lot of different criteria. But if you're going to, from a practical standpoint, the fish hook application under the Tiger grant is probably the most practical opportunity. And
Nobody has any idea of what the criteria is for the FAST Act. We know that what the criteria is for the Tiger grant. We know that we've been unsuccessful. Mike is much more familiar than I with the work that went into developing the Tiger grant and what materials are available, how that is structured. I think that step one would be to find out what exactly the requirement would be to apply for the FAST Act and see if there's any way at all that the materials we currently have are adequate to put together a reasonable proposal. I think sitting around here going back and forth about should we, shouldn't we, I don't think we need to know what we have to have in order to make it happen, and that's going to take a little digging. But
The question, Dave, comes down to does the Tiger grant, which has all the EIS, all the economic job creation, all the stuff that is data gathering, that's time consuming, is done. Can you put a new jacket on that and have it qualify for the FAST Act, or do you have to reset? You have to build a new application.
and that's what we need to find out. To even know if we have a choice to make.
Choice, exactly.
The question I put to that too, though, is this would then be our first FAST Act application. So does that put us in a different status of even being able to get it than having our fourth Tiger grant application?
Well, I'm not sure we'd even make a decision not to go for both.
Okay, I
don't know.
if we could do both, I like that idea as well.
So I think there's that component. Would that Tiger app fit into a FAST Act to expedite it? Because there's about 2 weeks, really, seriously, to put it together. And then where are you with ODOT? Because without ODOT in the middle of it, that does not help your application. Doesn't mean you can't do it.
Yeah, it's just, like I used a bad form, I said put the jacket on. This is putting the lipstick on that pig. If we put new lipstick on the pig, well, I'll qualify for the FAST Act.
Well, and if it qualifies, will it be a quality application?
Exactly.
I mean, that if anything troubles me more, it's doing a halfway job on that one. When if you file it under Tiger, you've got a quality application. And I can talk. Well, I think Commissioner the right point, and I will ask Michelle, where are we on her budget? I mean, they can go in and just without sending us a bill, at least calculate time and see where we are on that budget. And then let's suppose that burn up our entire budget for the year. And so then we talk about an additional effort on the FAST Act. Plus, there's a lot of things going on that we're working with now. Where do we come up with those additional? And I think that's a very good offer to have a conversation with the Austin Industries, and maybe I can find some additional funding, but we ought to know the answer to that before we start committing a lot of money.
What's the annual budget, Michelle?
A little over 70. It's about $70,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's,
And of which, you already are a player in that. Yeah. So the Austin Industries is one of our ongoing contributors. So I'm happy to have that conversation with Michelle. She's coming back tonight, I think. So she'll be available to have a conversation, and I've been talking to her and do that. I just know that both she and I think ODOT are very skeptical about the FAST Act application. Did a good job.
Wasn't that in the context of the new project? Wasn't that in the context of phase 2? Was the question asked about can we put...
But could you do the fish hook?
Polish the fish hook and
Yeah.
make it...
Yeah.
So if we did both and they were the same, wouldn't that reduce the costs for both? Like they at least would combine efforts going forward that, they say transportation to the DC for both of them rather than one each or whatever. Just kind of, you can get more done for your dollar if we do both applications.
But they could have a chance of negating each other.
Yeah.
Politically, they could negate each other at the federal level.
And you can get too many things going. As I said, Michelle and I agreed we would go to ODOT and have a conversation at the high level. I don't know if it would be with the director or with the deputy director about where they are in that. And at some point, if they just say no, it makes it really tough to move a FAST app forward right now, no matter what it looks like.
Let me try this.
But have that
Dave.
question. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Let me try this. If we can generate the funds so that we have not totally expended our budget, I suggest that if either the county or the city of Dundee will step up as the front runner, that we go ahead and make one more pass, or another pass if you wish, at the Tiger Act. And we do that now. And then we evolve the various issues and priorities of what we want to work on through the FAST Act in the future. That's a 5-year program, and there are some escalators in it that may provide some opportunities tomorrow that are not envisioned today. Now that's maybe a little Pollyanna, but I'd say go ahead right now if the county and or Dundee, and we have the funding so that we don't completely castigate, that's as close a Christian word as I can find, our current lobby budget, that we go ahead and get that filed.
The word you're looking for is eviscerate.
That's a good one too.
That's right. So let me put on top, and that's the right thing about funding. As we talk about this, keep in mind that, and I'm going to send to the Parkway Committee today an email and a letter that I forwarded to the chair of the Transportation Commission and Matt Garrett yesterday. And what it was a letter from about approximately eight of our state legislators to ODOT, urging them to do a lot of things, but particularly to concentrate on moving the project forward, protecting it, particularly 219 to Rex Hill, and to move that forward. So we have that in place. We're now, and we're using a lot of lobbying efforts with respect to the Transportation Commission. We're going to have the MWAC issue on just continuing to push the legislature and the lobbying effort necessary to set us up for the next legislative session for this whole issue about the acquisition of right-of-way and preliminary design, or moving design forward from 219 to Rex Hill. So we also don't have the money to do that for the next 3 months, and that, I think we've said, is really critically important also. So we've got a lot of moving pieces going, and so when you get to the budget, I don't want to not have that continue because that one really is taking a lot of time right now. In terms of that, Brett and I met yesterday with one of the OTC commissioners, Sean O'Halloran, who is a very important part of that Transportation Commission. I don't know if any of you know, he's general counsel for Nike, but has spent a good part of his earlier career on the Hill in Washington, D.C., starting clear back when he worked with Senator Hatfield and on. We're then going to go on down the line with all of the other transportation commissioners, and then we need to be a strategy with MWAC to promote that protection of 219 to Rex Hill. And so there again, we're going to spend a lot of resources in the next 3 months and then going on into next year, because next year we want to be in a position as a project to be in the conversation about 2017 legislative actions to develop a transportation plan, and this project needs to be a piece of that. And so that's one more factor that we've got going that we need to be careful to, I think, to keep it at the forefront, because we've had a lot of success in that project. Stan, one of the things that you all did was bring a lot more attention to this project in Salem and other ways, and that's good, because it's reminding people of how important it is to keep it going. So when we think about dollars, Commissioner, and it goes through the county, we're going to spend a normal monthly budget. We'll spend $5,000 a month on that effort for the next 3 months, notwithstanding any of the rest of this. So. And I don't want to throw it. I'm not disagreeing on the question of the Tiger Act. I think if we're going to have, I think the cheapest one we can do is that one.
We either fish or cut bait on the
Yep.
Tiger Act.
Right.
And I think we need to make that decision today.
And that would probably be the least expensive of the options of what we could do on a federal level.
And that's what I'm suggesting we
Yep.
do. I'll even put it in the form of a motion.
Second. While you've been talking, I've been looking.
And so, well, let me, I just love to write down, I so move. Tell me.
You moved, I say.
So,
That we go ahead, if either the county or Dundee will step forward as the sponsor, and dollars are identified, that we move forward with one more submission of the Tiger Grant.
What were you looking up, Stan?
I was looking up if there's anything about the application process of Fast Life versus Tiger versus TIFIA. It's a whole bunch of things. And they look very similar. So the ability to kind of pick it up and convert it into a Fast Act application might be good. I haven't seen anything that says, you can only apply for one. So it's encouraging.
okay,
There
so.
have been no invitations yet on the FAST Act. There's been no federal invitations that I'm aware of.
There's something called Fast Lane, just.
The fast lane is out there and is a very short time frame right now.
But
What-
they've set aside a percentage of the money for rural projects, they set aside a percentage for tribal governments, so there may be a role here for the grant money club.
Yeah, it's too bad that Denise isn't here, because every meeting I've gone to of late, if you connect your application to a tribal entity, it moves to the top of the list. USGA has tons of money out there. If it's a tribe that applies for it, they're considered a severely underserved trust.
Them to sign on this.
Well, and again, that's what since you're thinking, it's again unfortunate Denise is not here, but the tribe, they've already put a pretty good piece of skin in the game. I don't think that they would be opposed to participating, and they might be given the status that they are acquiring, it might be a good piece in application for funding. So I think that if there's a motion on the table, but this is just part of the discussion.
Sure.
But if that motion were to pass, I think that there's a lot of caveats that need to be addressed along with it.
Well, but I think we clearly could have a conversation with the tribe if they'd want to join in, and they don't have to be here to do that, and we would. Well, but we have a motion that says to the effect that that if one of the local jurisdictions and/or the county would be willing to be the applicant, and that the funding is available to prepare that application and to
Funding's
move it forward, identified, that we authorize and support the filing of a Tiger Grant application. And of course, part of that, we'd ask the state, ODOT, to be a partner, but it wouldn't be one of their leads. I think that's probably very doable, Mr. Mayor. So I think that's the motion before us, and entertain any other questions before we have a vote on that. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I will have that as a part of my conversation with Michelle as soon as we can over in Salem on those issues. The committee probably should
If I may,
jump
I
in.
want to come back to what Mr. Halley had to offer. I think we need some counsel. We need to be advised as to the status of, what'd you call it, fast what?
Fast lane.
Fast lane.
is another one,
As to what the status is on that and what our options are on that. As another step, we just need some advice on that.
And we can do that, and we can have, in fact, I think we're getting close to a point where we may want to have Michelle come as a part of a conversation. What is our strategy for the next 12 months? And that would be a good conversation. By the time she gets here, the fast lane app period will have expired, as I understand it, for this year.
April 29th is the date for submission on the.
Yeah, but there's some earlier things that have to happen before then, and the Tiger is late in April. But anyway, whatever the dates are, I just think that we can have that conversation, Mr. Mayor.
Good, thank you.
But the good news is we now know the project will qualify as it is for fast lane funding.
Fast lane. Fast lane?
Fast lane is yet another.
It's just one of the different programs. There are a lot of programs in this whole thing, lots of them. Yeah.
So, Mr.
Mike?
Chairman, I would suggest that we don't have a motion, but we just have a consensus agreement that this group will be preparing to apply for Fastlane 2017, and you put that, since you have a fixed agenda that doesn't change, and you add an agenda item that's Fastlane, I think.
Okay, and I think let me say that the conversation Michelle and I had about that is we'll have a discussion with ODOT about this year. But I think really what's going to happen is going to say, okay, if you're telling us we can't do it well this year, then we want an understanding that we're going to be at the top of the list in 2017. And so.
One other point, David. It does say here about Tiger grants are available to fund a wide variety of wider array of projects. Those eligible to seek grants include state docs, metro planning organizations, port authorities, tribal governments, and other agencies. It doesn't say anything about local or regional jurisdictions per se. So you may need somebody in the front, and that could be the grant line. It could be, ODOT or a combination.
To what are you alluding?
This is for the Tiger.
To the Tiger? Well, we've already been there, yeah.
Tiger grant money.
But ODOT's backing out. What he's saying is it doesn't mention city and county jurisdiction.
But it says others, but I've clearly, in all of the prior Tiger Grant applications, it's been clear that local jurisdictions or counties could do the application with ODOT as a partner, and then it goes forward.
Yeah,
So
somebody
that doesn't bother me. I think that's not the question. It's really just whether we can put together that one and make it, and somebody's willing to be the lead and fund it.
If we could try to be the lead applicant, though, I think that would be useful.
Well, I think,
It really doesn't matter who's leading the top, right?
ultimately, I'm not sure it matters who entity's the applicant. It's the quality of the application that's going to really make that one happen.
Has anyone done a post-mortem on why the Tiger grant didn't make it?
Well, we've had
The application.
conversations with US DOT, whatever,
Right.
some feedback from that. I was part of a conference call one time where they mentioned this and this and this items that were needed to be adjusted for the next application. I think that was 2 years ago I was on that call.
Okay, so you have
I'm not
some
sure that
that-
those items got specifically addressed in this last application.
We've had 2 or 3 of those postmortems.
With that, I mean, having done the grant stuff on the economic stimulus, not on tiger stuff, we found you've got to listen really carefully to those kinds of postmortems, and because it's a box checking game, and they're looking for weird reasons not to, just didn't have this thing gone.
Okay, anything else?
Yep.
We've got a meeting next month on whatever. We'll announce that.
We adjourn?
We will be in about,
Sit down.
we're going to be meeting on the 21st of April will be our next meeting. We're adjourned. Thank you very much. And Brett, I'll talk to Michelle and get back to you on
Okay.